Alright, live in a very small city where everyone knows everyone, by some extent. Hanging out with friends outside of a shithouse club. They decide to go around the little side street to smoke, to avoid wind. Don't smoke, but go along anyhow. Standing in a group of 4 smoking people, across the street from a large, mostly empty industrial building. There is a door into the building for service only. No doorknob, a way to get inside that door unless you have a key. Talking, smoking, etc. I see a group of 3 people, normal hipster type 20-somethings emerge from the door without a knob. They are all wearing shades of red, but totally normal clothes. Race-wise, all of them are white. 2 stay off to the side, on the sidewalk and near the door. I feel weird suddenly, very weird. None of my friends notice this. The leader of the pack steps out onto the street and crosses it, walking right up to me. "Hey man, got a smoke?" he says to me. Big old friendly smile on his face. Normal looking guy, wearing a red and black flannel. I reply that I don't smoke. Think it's weird that he approached the only guy that isn't smoking in a group of smokers. "Oh, that's okay, I've got one here." He digs a smoke out of his pocket, along with his cell phone. "Hey man, this building is crazy. Want to see what I filmed?" By now, my friends have come around that there is a new presence. They fall semi-quiet. He shows me a really staggering video of what I can only describe as the basement of the building across the street. Bunch of random, closed numbered doors. It kind of looks like it was filmed while running. I start to feel dizzy as the video ends with the person filming stopping at an open door. Crazy, right? "So, what do you know about the key?" I say, "Of Solomon?" He grins, real fucking big. This is when I notice that the people across the street are standing nose to nose, not speaking, and just sort of staring each other down. "Yeah," he says, still grinning. "I knew you were a good pick. Why don't you come across with us, and we'll show you something cool. You gotta see it." He grabs my wrist, not forcefully, but with his entire hand, incessant. I shake my head. My friends are starting to question him, but I can't really hear them. His eyes are a deep espresso color, picking up a ton of light from around us. It's alarming. "Come on, man, you gotta see it." My boyfriend perks up and leans in, getting real friendly. "BF, oh hey, why can't I come? Why don't you shake my hand?" Red guy looks sort of pissy that he is being interrupted, gives a sigh, and offers his hand. BF asks, "Are you offering me your right hand?" Red just shrugs, and BF takes his hand with his left hand. BF is big into eating energy. Using his left hand, he does not squeeze, just a normal exchange. Red looks cool for a second, still talking to me about going with them, and then he looks utterly sick, goes pale, and pulls his hand sharply from my boyfriend, even flicking his wrist as if he touched something hot. Red winces and takes a step back, still offering for me to follow, sans boyfriend. I refuse, and something flashes in his eyes, kind of like angry failure. He crosses the street and collects the other 2 without speaking. He, I swear on all that is good in me, reaches out and turns a fucking doorknob on the door with no fucking knob, opens the locked fucking door with absolutely no way of doing so. The building interior is pitch black. The other 2 follow him without a word, breaking their weird nose-to-nose staring contest. He turns, still holding the no knob, and flicks his head as if I am supposed to follow. I shake my head and feel like I'm going to fucking puke. He narrows his eyes, and they all go in to that pitch black building. My friend group is stone silent. Everyone's burned down their smokes and are just sitting and staring across the street. Our friend goes, "Doesn't that door have no knob?" We are all still staring. I am frozen in place. BF breaks the silence. "Did you almost just get abducted by the fucking demons, my dude?" "I just almost got abducted by the fucking demons, my dude." Be the next day. I am back on my bullshit in downtown. so I venture out around the side street because I'm a fucking clown. It's still daylight, so I am a little more confident. I approach the door. I want to know if there is really any reason they could get in, like if they had keys that I didn't see him take out of his pocket. I see a keyhole, no handle, but a keyhole. Oh, thank God, they were just weirdos. Something feels wrong. I take a closer look at the keyhole. It is filled in with rubber cement and obviously unusable. Oh, okay. I can never come here again. The Australian guy. Live in a rural-ish sort of town on the coast. Work in the next township over. Between the two townships is a national park. Really crappy roads connecting the two. Only establishment in the next township is the pub where I work. Driving back home from work one night, around 1 a.m. Had been raining 15 minutes prior, so the roads were slippery as fuck. Notice a car partly on the road. Looks like they've lost control and crashed into a tree. Driver's side door all kinds of fucked up, slightly ajar. Pull up beside car, put my hazards on. See someone unconscious in the driver's seat. Feel pretty uneasy. First time I've been the first responder in a crash. Can't call cops or ambulance yet because no cell signal in between the two towns. As I'm walking over toward the car, I notice a strange smell. Same smell I remember from science class where I dissected a sheep's kidney. Driver seems to be mid-50s, longish grey hair. Remember serving him a couple times. Open the driver's side door to check he's okay. Lower torso is covered in blood. His shirt is all kinds of fucked up. See long gashes in his stomach. Doesn't seem to be breathing, but the blood is pretty fresh, so I figure it could not have happened long before I got there. Hear some rustling in bushes, like a really fuck-off huge pig or a kangaroo. Weird smell gets stronger. Remember my ex-training and spook the fuck out of there. See a weird humanoid shape come out of the bushes and bend over the car in rearview mirror. Get back into cell signal range as I near my township. Call the cops and report that shit. Don't mention the spooky shit, because I don't want to be locked up for being a loony. Talk to one of my coworkers who's in the rural fire service the next day. He ended up responding to the crash. Says they did not find a body at the crash, but saw all the blood covering the driver's seat and some splattered around the interior of the car. No obvious indication as to what could have cut the guy up. Wasn't that bad of a crash. Coworker figures the guy was disoriented from the crash and walked off into the bush. Tell him the guy was dead when I got there, not breathing at all, and he'd stop bleeding. Spooks coworker out. Don't mention anything else, because I don't reckon he'd believe me. Small township, so most of this shit makes it into the paper and local news. Absolutely no media coverage. RFS coworker tells me federal cops started looking into it. No attempt to locate the body. Get contacted by the cops to tell them what happened. Lie about seeing the guy. Say the car was empty when I got there. Still have to drive home from there late at night. Still get really uncomfortable whenever I pass the crash site. This happened back in the summer when I was 11 years old. I don't remember much about the summer, honestly, but I do remember this specific day. It was summer break. I was at home, an only child, and both of my parents worked, so I spent a lot of time by myself. This was one of those days where I was home alone, doing whatever I did at the age of 11. It was hot, but I also remember that it was really rainy, like we were getting hit with a crazy storm. I was not able to go outside to do anything because of how much it was coming down, and the street was starting to basically become a small stream. After about half an hour of the rain coming down, it started getting really windy, and at one point, the power went out. I was pretty upset about that, because I was playing Pokemon Stadium on my N64, and I was in the middle of one of the cup tournaments, and then the power went out. If I were any more angsty, I probably would have thrown my controller in a rage, but I also did not want to break my stuff, so I just put it down and yelled at the now dark TV. I went downstairs, and decided to just sit on the couch and do nothing until we got the power back because I was not sure what else I could do. I sat there and watched the rain come down, thinking about how quiet it was, when out of nowhere, I heard a familiar tune. It was the tone that came from an ice cream truck. I guess I should mention a couple of things about my neighborhood. I lived on a cul-de-sac, so one way in and one way out. We did have an ice cream truck that came through, but they usually came through on Tuesdays and Fridays, and I don't believe that this was either of those. On top of that, the truck that did come through would come through at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They never came through earlier in the day. I know it seems weird that I knew the exact time, but I remember weird things like that. That is just how I've always been. At first, I thought I was imagining it. There was no way that an ice cream truck was riding around in the rain like that. But as it was getting close, it was getting louder, so it was definitely real. But again, in the middle of a massive thunderstorm, no one is going to be running out to get their ice cream. I wiped the condensation off the window just to watch as this colorful van drove down the road and around part of the cul-de-sac. I watched as it kept going, the tires sloshing through the collecting water and the headlights barely visible. But sure enough, the van was covered in colorful decals with various ice cream treats plastered all over it. I remember feeling really strange as I watched the van pull around and then just kind of stop. It pulled past my house in the middle of the circle and it stopped. I sat there and watched the van sitting there on the road, the music continuing to play at max volume. It was kind of unsettling. The background of the thunderstorm with this van just sitting there motionless and chiming out whatever soulless kid tune it was playing. No one got out of the truck. No one walked out of any of the houses toward the van or anything. There was no one outside anywhere. Just this van sitting on the street, headlights shining, windshield wipers going, and music playing. Now, logically, one could assume that this van was maybe just pulling over to wait out the worst of the storm. That would make sense, right? But then why would he, one, drive in the storm for several minutes to come down this specific cul-de-sac, and then why would he park there and keep the music playing? Normally, the van would play the music while he approached, and then it would be off when he stopped. But this guy did not turn it off. It just kept playing, over and over on a loop, for an hour, at least an hour. I watched this truck over the time, glancing over every few moments to see if he moved or anyone got out. But no, this guy seriously just stopped and was taunting 11-year-old me with this annoying, slightly distorted song. Obviously, I don't think it was actually about me, but who knows, right? I was not able to think about anything but the dumb song. It was super distracting and super loud. At one point, I thought about going outside to see if maybe the guy needed help or something, but I didn't. I was way too shy to do something like that. After that hour or so, the van slowly crept away from where it was parked and then left. As suddenly as it appeared, it was gone. It was super slow roll as it rolled down the road, like 5 miles per hour, and the music kept going as it left the area. I watched it turn to the right and go out of view. I have no idea what the hell this was, and like I said, a lot of people may not think that this was scary, but I cannot think of any reason for this guy to have just sat there for that long with music going like that. Like, maybe he was waiting for someone in the neighborhood, but then why would he wait for a full hour like that? Why keep the music going? Plus, no one came out. No one exited the van. The whole waiting out the storm thing kind of makes sense, minus the fact that the storm was still going when he left. And again, the music. Maybe he was just being a nuisance, sure, that makes sense. But then again, why? I just don't know. Worse yet, I never saw that ice cream van again for the rest of the summer, or honestly, ever. We had our regular one that came back the next week, but that specific one never returned. I told my mom about it when she got home, and her only explanation was that maybe he did not know that the music was on, which I cannot personally believe with how loud and obnoxious it was. Looking back, it was very strange, and for some paranoid reason, part of me tells me that he was not there to sell ice cream. What he was there for, however, I will likely never know. I've told this story a few times in here, but I like talking about it. I miss when this used to happen. A few years ago, probably 2013 or 2014, had the habit of staying on the phone with a chick until one of us fell asleep. Both practically falling asleep, in silence, due to fatigue. Hear the scream of a desperate woman, as if she was right in beside me. Don't give a damn, thinking it was just a hallucination due to my sleepy state. About 10 seconds later, the chick asks, Dude, did you scream? Say no. My ass clenches. I am 100% awake because of fear, and I get the hell out of the room. A detail that might be useful is that in my house, we jokingly called this room the mess room. There was the computer, an old sofa where I was lying down, and lots of junk. Cabinets, wardrobes we did not use, books, and all kinds of things we were unsure whether to throw away or not. They say that this kind of thing can attract spirits, but I am not sure. As days went by, I started seeing some strange things in that room, but mostly hearing, not seeing. I spent all of my free time in there, since the computer was there. Watching TV in living room, decide to grab a snack. Go to the kitchen, which has a door facing that mess room. See a female leg, strangely similar to my mother's, walk in there, but I could not see anything else of the body except the leg. It's not like it was a floating leg, but I could not process the rest. My ass clenches again, but I notice that my cat is there, but I rush to rescue him. Run to get him off the couch and feel a presence that exerted a certain pressure on me. Start feeling someone watching me occasionally whenever I was in the room. Eventually, I get used to the sensation and stop being bothered by it. One day, while looking in there, I see a fucking woman next to me. She was extremely tall, wearing a blue dress, like one of those old maid dresses, and a hat on her head, like the one on the doll, pic related. Could not process her face either. It wasn't a void, but I simply could not see how it was. However, I could see the rest of her body. Scared of her, but her presence was comforting, and it calmed me down. Get used to her presence, and start greeting her and saying goodbye when going to sleep. Get increasingly calm whenever I saw her or felt her presence. Always in the same position, with arms forward and fingers intertwined. Give her a name, which I can't remember. After a few months, I stopped seeing her and feeling her presence. To this day, I am puzzled by this. I really want to know who this woman was and why she gave me this piece without ever having a word with me. At least, nothing I heard. At first, I thought she was the woman that screamed, but now I believe not, because she was always so calm, while the other one was so desperate. I also believe that the legs were not hers, as I saw the legs and not the dress, which covered her entire body. Any ideas on this at all? That one reminds me of something that happened at my first real job after I left school. Be 16. Have a trade job, well, an apprenticeship. Get sent to this job in the middle of the city. A lot of the old buildings are still up, but a lot have been demolished. Work on this new building that has about 30 apartments in it. Even though it has 30 apartments, it's not really all that big. Whole place is more or less done. It's just joiners, electricians, decorators, and floor layers left. Probably only about 14 of us in total. Everyone is pretty chill, but being by far youngest, I end up a bit of a dog's body, although I only do things that the people I directly work with ask me to do. Every day, we hear this loud as fuck opera singing from somewhere in the building. Majority of the workers are chads in the 25 to 30 age range who want to listen to the top 10 on the radio, so they don't have time for this shit. Shout at whoever is singing to shut the fuck up. Sometimes they stop, and sometimes they don't. Can never find out where it's coming from. One day, one of the people I work with asked me to fetch some things he'd left in one of the apartments on the top floor. Walk into the apartment. Just as I do, this enormous, Pavarotti-esque man, who is fat with a big stash, bursts into singing opera in the room that I've just walked into. Sounds incredible to hear someone sing like that in person. Turns around and sees me. Sort of looks a bit embarrassed. Tell him he's great. collect the shit and leave because now it feels awkward. Proudly announce I solved the mystery of the singer. For some reason, I assumed he was a painter. Decorators tell me he does not work with any of them. Turns out, he doesn't work with any of us. Also turns out, no one else has seen him except for me. Go back upstairs with a few other people. The man is not there. He does not seem to be anywhere on the site at all. I am looking at Google Maps like 10 years later. See the building. Check through old dates. Where the apartments are now used to be a big music hall. Quick odd story that happened to me. Grew up in Scotland, in a town called Drumnadrochit, which happens to be on the banks of Loch Ness. The way the Ice Age carved Loch Ness is that after a few meters of shallow, 30 centimeters water, it just drops straight to the bottom, 240 meters. As a kid, we used to call this a drop-off, and it was just a black mass. We used to swim and push each other off. One time, during a summer swim at the drop-off, I felt something cold, large, and almost metallic hit my leg. It was big enough to push me in the water and even left a bruise on my leg. As a local, this freaked me the hell out, and I never swam past the drop ever again. I can relate to that feeling. Down here in Maine, there are a lot of lakes, and admittedly, there is something a little uncomfortable about swimming in said lakes. In particular, I usually snorkel, which is both cool and terrifying because one can see another world, which most people don't think about, but also, a lot of the lakes are very deep to the point of looking bottomless, and depending on lake visibility, can be limited. In fact, once I remember seeing a very large salmon seemingly coming up from nowhere, and then disappear into the floating sediment below. The sight was cool, but it made me feel like there could always be something in the water with me that would make me go insane if I saw it. I guess the best way to describe the lakes is Lovecraftian, because I do feel like I'm going to accidentally find a lost city that contains some elder god every time I swim. I was in the Coast Guard. 95% of search and rescue missions I went on were from missing divers. I remember one search and rescue mission that we went on was of a diver who surfaced and started waving his hands at the boat that brought them out. They said the diver was there 1 second, and then he got pulled under the next second, straight down. We never found his corpse. We never found any of the corpses for any of the search and rescue missions that we went on. If you go out on a boat, just know that boats sink all the time for any reason at all. You think cruise ships are safe? They are absolutely not. We had to respond to one that almost flipped over by mistake. For a ship ran mostly by computers, that is a huge deal. I don't go out into the ocean anymore. Those dolphins, which were being studied by biologists, were doing what dolphins do, not caring about anything and jumping around the boat. They always followed the boat in his back trip to the port. Suddenly, a sailor started to feel weird. He thought it was the bad food he ate for breakfast, and he told the boat crew to return to port. Dolphins started to follow the boat, as always, but the biologist saw that they weren't jumping, but marching in a single dolphin row, one at each side of the boat, like an escort. In a certain moment, they stopped and overtook the boat, doing the same march thing. Then, when reaching port, they stopped and made space for the boat and were standing there, waiting for it to reach the port. When the biologist and crew reached the port, male nurse of the boat told all the crew that the sick sailor was so bad and they couldn't even call the ambulances because he died in the boat. Dolphins knew about it. They were funeral escorting the boat. Nothing really scary in the water, but the beach itself can be pretty gruesome and scary. Mostly because people are stupid and/or bad luck. I've seen 2 things happen. The first one happened a few years back. I was at the beach with friends when we just heard this guy start screaming in pain. Everyone rushes over to see this guy somehow got a horseshoe crab stinger impaled under the nail of his big toe. The thing was dead and must have washed up. He was probably running, didn't see it, and it somehow ended up impaling the toe. The second was a woman who was playing volleyball. They must have not evened out the sand because she hit a pit and broke her ankle so badly you could see the bone almost sticking out from her skin.
This is not really X, but it shows even out of the water, beaches can be real hazards. So, I have a few of these. One of my workmates is from Shetland. He told me a few stories about deaths and irregular events from up there. A few years back, 2016 I think, one of his fisherman friends from up there had gotten his leg caught in a netting line while out in the North Sea and had been dragged overboard. The guy had a family and would have been conscious, in agony and aware that he was going to die, with no hope of a rescue or escape, or seeing his family ever again. Not particularly paranormal as such, just horrific to think about. Another one he told me was about that at the inquest to Piper Alpha, there were a lot of inconsistencies that were never revealed to the inquiry. That there were two pumps or something that were apparently never to be used at the same time, and it was claimed in the inquest that this had never happened, but that he had the photos of both being used at the same time, something like this. I know it's vague, but I don't remember the details. Anyway, he said he was holding on to them and would never go public with them in case he ended up dying in a car accident or something like that. My grandparents in the community were sitting by a river leading to the ocean until they saw what looked like floating barrels come from the water. No noise, nothing. It was shiny, metallic, before eventually falling back into the water. They think it was either extraterrestrial or Soviet submarines. My guess is the latter, since we had tons of submarines try and come into the area. Even got the Canadian Navy on their heels one time. Either way, they went back there all the time and nothing since. A fisherman went out and quite away from the land, would sit on the boat for days, saw broom handles come up out of the water before falling back in, threw in dynamite sticks and blew the water sky high. Nothing but dead fish came up. Again, I know it has to be Soviet submarines, but damn, I don't know what it is. Creepy to be out on a boat, fishing sometimes. Residents of a few towns on the Caspian shores in Iran and Azerbaijan say that they have seen an amphibious man. He was reported to be swimming amidst huge shoals of fish. Rumor has it that the waters where he swam were becoming sparkling clear. Recently, eyewitnesses on board the Azeri trawler, Baku, reported seeing the creatures. According to Gafar Gasanov, the captain of the trawler, the creature was swimming in a parallel course near the boat for a long time. At first, they thought it was a large fish, but then they spotted hair on its head, and his fins looked very unusual, and incredibly, the front part of his body was equipped with arms. Shortly after this report was published in an Iranian newspaper, numerous readers came forward describing their own sightings. The readers pointed out that numerous fishermen had repeatedly seen the strange creature at sea and on the shore after seabed volcanoes in the area of Babosera became active in February, and offshore oil production operations intensified in the Caspian. All the eyewitness accounts provide a similar description of the marine humanoid. His height is about 165 to 168 centimeters. It has a protruding stomach. His feet are pinniped, and he has 4 webbed fingers on either of his hands. His skin is pale white in color. The hair on his head looks black and green. His arms and legs are shorter and heavier than those of a medium-built person. Apart from his fingernails, he has nails growing on the tip of his aquiline nose that resembles a dolphin's beak. There is no information as to his ears. His eyes are large and orbicular. The mouth of the creature is fairly huge. His upper jaw is protruding, and his lower lip flows smoothly into the neck. His chin is missing. Iranians have dubbed the creature Runan Shah, or Master of the Seas and Rivers. Other stories report that the waters remain crystal clear for days in the area where the creature has been spotted. Fishermen report that the fish that are caught in their nets seem to sense the creature when it approaches and produce a barely audible gurgling sound. It is said that the creature answers the call of the catch by making similar throaty noises. According to a theory, the creature is not alone, and that there is a family of underwater humans who are on a mission to tackle environmental problems in the Caspian. The reproduction of flora and fauna in the Caspian has significantly deteriorated due to a surge in offshore oil production operations and underwater volcanic activity. The Astrakhan fishermen have long complained about the decrease in the stock of sturgeon.